Welcome back everybody, Africa Twin only channel. I'll be doing an 8-in-1 video where I take some of the Frank Spray channel videos that I dealt specifically only with the Africa Twin. I'll compile it into one video and you can have a look at your red status bar at the bottom of your screen on the video. I'll put down sections. Some of the videos you would have seen and some people would have not seen these videos. So I'll cram it all into one video and then I'll start doing individual more new videos. So if you have seen the older video, apologies, wait for the new ones to come, but there will be some people that just haven't seen the old videos yet, so give them also a chance to view them. Next up, 8-in-1 video coming with a bunch of things. Hope you enjoy it. Until later, bye bye. Welcome back everybody. Today we're doing XRV750 chain maintenance. We're going to clean it and I'll take you through what we're going to need. 24 socket wrench, some chain wax or chain loop, it's your preference. I prefer the chain wax, it doesn't fling off. Pepsol diluted 50%, get it at Midas. Sponge and some diesel. Why we're using diesel, the diesel is non-abrasive on the chain. So we'll be doing this video at some stage. I will stop and then we'll use the pressure washer thereafter. If you have a pressure washer, if you have access to it, use it. But let's start off and we'll just have a quick inspection. What you want to check is on your chain, if you have a master link or you have your rivet in. So do an inspection and really look at it and make sure that this part is still fine, it's all solid. Wheel bearings all around, have a look at the wheel bearings on the sides, in and out, all is tight there, it's not a problem. And then we can start doing the cleaning of the chain. Make sure that you have something under your wheel. You don't want to get the diesel on your paving. Absolutely not starting the bike because fingers will get lost in your chain, so don't go that route. We'll clean it off with a diesel and then we'll do a wrap. Remember your chain, it depends on what chain you have, but mostly people have O-ring chains. So when you do your pressure washer, you don't want to wash inside the chain because the O-rings inside, you will start actually washing out the lubricant. And when we're done with cleaning the chain, we will tighten it again so that you can see how we do that process. I've deliberately loosened it up a bit so that we can go through the process and you can see how it works. Diesel is non-abrasive, so it will not fade to plastics, it will actually properly clean it. And remember people, never ever start your motorcycle, put it in gear and do chain cleaning. It's just too dangerous. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll take the pressure washer and
we will start cleaning it up, and I will be back with you shortly. Right, we've washed the chain clean with the pressure washer, and what we're going to do now is we are going to use a bit of chain wax, and then we will set the chain tension on it. I'm going to work between 45 and 55 millimeters, and very important, do not adjust the chain on the main stand, because it will be more taut once off the main stand. There's a lot of play in the shock. So let's do the chain wax first. But also, on another note, I usually do chain wax before going off to the office in the next morning, 7 hours or so before that, so that it can actually get into the chain and all the O-ring seals. Sunday afternoon, there goes the neighborhood. Alright, we've applied the chain wax, and what we're going to need now is a number 24 socket. We are going to loosen the bolt on the other side to get some slack. Now remember your positioning. Currently we're sitting on 15. It will be 15 on the other side as well. I'll take it off. Before I take it off stand, I'll loosen it up, and then I'm going to adjust it to 16 or 17, and I'll show you what the difference is in the tension. Okay, we've got the setting on 17. Going to be tightening it up. Not going to over tighten it for now. Have a look at the slack. So what we're going to see is I'm going to take the roll the bike off main stand, and then we'll have a look at the tension once it's actually with preload and your weight on it. Bear with me. Alright, so to recap quickly, we have adjusted it 2 clicks up. I'm actually now putting weight on the bike, and as you can see, I'm not sure if you can zoom in here, this is the tension on 2 clicks up. Barely touching the swing arm, and I actually have adjusted it another click up from 15 to 18, which makes it at 3 clicks, and it was too stiff. So the problem is when it's too stiff on the XRVs is, if you can focus here on the front, well, you can't really, on your front sprocket, your main output shaft has a big bearing on the back. If it's too taut on the chain, it wears out the front bearing inside. To replace the bearing, you'll have to take out the motor, split the casings. So 2 clicks was fine for me. As I said, barely touches the swing arm with load on. One thing that you can pick up if your chain is too slack is riding it, say, 3rd or 4th gear with lower RPMs, 2000 or so RPMs, and if you open it up, you'll hear it, a flutter on the back of the bike, which is your chain actually hitting your guard on the side. It has a click 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 sound. but you'll have to figure out where your sweet spot is. The manual says chain play between 45 and 55 millimeters. I use it as a reference, just with load on, barely touching the swing arm. I clean my chains every 1,000 kilometers. Use diesel, use Prepsol. We'll be doing the rest of the bike, we'll clean it up now. I'm most probably going to be riding it tomorrow, but Prepsol, chain wax, as I said, chain wax, leave it overnight. That's just what I do. You can do it differently. Some people say you should put it on a hot chain. I don't know, I've been riding for ages and it just works for me. Okay, so cool, we'll do another video soon, but let us know what else you want to see. Thanks for out. Welcome back, everybody. Well, today we're going to discuss Honda XRV750 Audio 7 Audio 7A, front suspension and progressive springs, and what tools we need to check up. So basic tools required is number 10 spanner socket, impact tool if your bolts are stubborn, and a hammer for the impact tool. So you'll see on the right hand side I've got some standard springs on the XRV750, but I'll get to them now and discuss that. So let's quickly take it off, and I want to show you what the difference between the Audio 7 and 7A is when it comes to front suspension. Okay. Remember to jack up your front wheel so that it's stationary in the air. That will actually expand your whole cartridge when you do work on it, so that you don't have any pressure on it. And also you'll see on the top you have bleed screws, but I'll show you that a little bit later. So what you want to do is to have the air out of the system at all times. Some people say add air in, but as a standard rule you don't want any air inside there. That's what the bleed screws are there for, is to take the air actually out. So on this XRV750 I've got progressive springs. The standard XRV750 Africa Twin comes with, I won't say a weak front suspension, but a very soft front suspension. And I've done the progressive springs for the simple reason is really upgrading the suspension. It makes a world of difference. Comes at a cost, usually about anything from 2,500 to 3,800 depending on the brand. So you'll see in your standard cartridge you have one of these springs, which is a standard spring, and you'll have a little short one on the top that comes with it. Now these are gone, they've been used elsewhere. So the progressive spring just tapers in the middle. Your springs are closer to each other. As you push it in, progressively becomes stiffer, and it really makes a big difference. So I've been asked by one of the subscribers about the oil ratio, the weighting of the oil. Per cartridge you use about 648 cc's of oil. That's 648 milliliters. Your standard weighting is 10 weight. I have seen people running 7.5, which is a bit thinner. I don't recommend going 15, that's really too much, and it won't go through the passages. So I've also seen people use ATF fluid, I think, which is equivalent to about 7.5, 10 weight rating. If you don't have original fork oil, you can use the ATF oil. But as I said, 650 mils in the front cartridge each side. But to get the front suspension of the Africa Twin really what it ought to be, prior revalving anything or going upside down WP suspension, really just invest in a good style of a good set of progressive springs. A guy on the Wild Dog forum has usually he's called Super Foxy. I bought my 2 sets that I have through him. But the difference between the RD07 and 07A is what I want to show you now. Is on the 07, it's extremely easy to drain the oil. You'll see there's a screw at the bottom. Let me just see if you can see it. You can, yes. All right. At the bottom is a screw. It's a number 10 spanner. In here you drain the old oil out. You have it uncompressed on the main stand, the front wheel in the air. On the RD07A, now this, as I understand it, actually this is the last model that had the screw in, the 07. The 07A came from 99 upwards, 2001, 2002 and 2003. You'll also see the fairing differs a bit on the front. I'll show you a picture on that one. But they blanked this hole off. So unfortunately on the 07A, if you don't have a bolt here at the bottom, you will need to remove the complete fork set with the wheel, turn them upside down and drain your oil via that way. But what you can do is when you have removed it, you can have somebody tap you a 6mm hole for future drainage of oil. Now really, you can do this. Get a guy to properly drain, tap your hole in, 6mm bolt short, and then for future use you can drain your oil like that. But the quick fix here is not by revalving and using a different weight of oil. It can wash out underneath you on gravel if you have the incorrect grade of oil in. Rather save up the money, buy a set of progressive fork springs. I'm not allowed to put Super Foxy's contact details on here, which I think is just fair, but you can send me an email at the end of the video to my Gmail account, or alternately just add a comment below the video. I'll follow up on the comments and I'll privately send it to you. Contact him, guy in Cape Town, very good. He's got progressive springs available on the old XRVs, and he's very knowledgeable. One thing as well that you can have a look at while we're on the topic, on the front side of things, you'll see the rear fender. Usually they come down to about here. So what I did on this one, I cut it off for the simple reason, if you start doing a lot of gravel riding and dongas, holes, they tend to compress upward. And what they do is they hook on your belly pan, and it hooks at the bottom just enough so that it pushes it up, and it takes your front fender and it pushes it down into your wheel arch. So precaution measure here, preventative maintenance. I do it, it's mine, that's what I've bought it for. I use it on the weekends. Just cut it a bit shorter so that when it does compress, that you have the clearance going past the bash plate. I think for the front suspension that's about it at the moment. As I said, 648, let's recap quickly, 648 mils per cartridge per side. 10 weight is your standard. If you want a softer suspension, you can go 5W or 7.5W. I won't recommend going anything above 10 weight. You can try it, but I think if you want to achieve the level of suspension that you're coming to on the first side of things, because the suspension is fairly weak, it doesn't really decompress the way you want it to. It tends to dive a lot when you take a grip, a handful of front brake. Immediately upgrade to progressive springs. It'll turn the bike around, make it a much nicer bike on the gravel roads. I mean, it's not WP suspension, it will never be, but I've been riding with this on some Swartruggens gravel roads, and I was doing 120, 130, sometimes 140, and it really still felt stable. But as I said, if your oil is dirty, flush it, get it out of the system, put new oil in. If you just want to do an oil change, stick with the 10 weight, but recommended really go progressive springs. It makes a lot of difference on the gravel. It really does. Okay, so at the comments below, let me know what we can do for you guys, what you want to see. We'll be doing a state of earth to earth leakage testing, compression tests, and I'll see what else I can do for you on the XRV. Cool. All right. Well, for now, that'll be out, and I hope you enjoy the content. Whatever's left of the festive season over the long weekend, Easter. Enjoy it with family. Take care, and have a nice one. Bye bye, guys. See you later.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody. A quick video on the africatwin Facet fuel pump. So your normal OEM fuel pump, they have a tendency to stop working at some stage. But there is a fix for that. If you're either in the bush, if you want a bit more longevity out of your fuel pump, you can fix them, and I'll show you how. But first, before we open this up, your Facet pump that you buy, there's a difference between your normal 12 volt fuel pump and a Facet pump. So the difference is about 500-600 rand, but the functionality of it is completely different, hence the more expensive price. Your normal fuel pump 12 volt that they use on Toyota Corollas, Hiace, E20s, and whatever else, continuously pumps fuel through. But your Facet pump is exactly the same as your OEM pump in the way that it's got clever technology in that it mechanically pumps and it stops as soon as your carburetors are full. So if you buy the cheaper fuel pump and not exactly the Facet pump, you fit it onto your bike, it'll pump fuel, but it will overfuel and your carbs will start to flood. So very important, Facet pump, there's a reason why people trust it. It's a name brand, it works good, and it's got a functionality in that it actually stops pumping when it's full in the carb side. So that's the difference, normal pump and the Facet pump. Let's quickly have a look at the OEM one. So the OEM unit, they will stop working, and you'll have to replace them. Nobody really, or some people open them up, or some don't. But I'll quickly show you what the issue is on the inside. It's like an old points and condenser system. You have a butterfly that opens and closes. It's spring loaded, and it's a contact breaker that engages, and it shuts off when it's actually full. So these contacts are dirty with wear and tear, years of age. Take a bit of sandpaper, fold it double, and be very careful to clean the points out. Assemble your pump, hook it up, and there you go. You'll get a bit more life out of it. If you're somewhere stuck in the bush, this is a quick way. If you can't get it to work again in the bush, what you can do is take your feed from your tank, bypass the existing fuel pump, if it's a Facet or if it's the OEM one, bypass it straight into the carbs. The trick here is, if you have a 3/4 full tank, you can gravity feed and you'll be able to travel further. If your tank is almost empty, your carbs are actually positioned higher than your outlet on your fuel side, so you won't be able to get the gravity feed upwards. Always either full tank, 3/4 full. I'm sure you'll get away with half a tank as well. Bypass the fuel pump completely, get home, do your fix. When you do preparation before going on a trip, we'll talk about that in another video. Some things that you need to take with you. As I said previously in another video, they were prone for rectifier and regulator issues and some other small gremlins. But we'll talk about that in another vid. Right, cool. So here it is. OEM fuel pump, Facet fuel pump, normal fuel pump, the differences. Please like and subscribe. I appreciate you guys on the channel. It seems you love the content. I'll do more of it. And the channel grows. Thank you for your support. See you guys later, guys. Bye-bye. Welcome back, everybody. Today's video we are going to be talking about the Facet fuel pump and getting a bit more life out of it. Tools that we need: piece of sandpaper, star point screwdriver, OEM Facet pump that is in your bike, and maybe a set of files. I've got the needle files, I always trust them. So today's fix will be aimed at two people. The one that's really a cheap person that's wanting to get more life out of it, and the other person that simply replaces it with a new part. I like to stretch my things and get the most out of it, and obviously it has to be reliable. I'm not going to take a chance on anything, but let's quickly look at it. So what I'll talk about first is the Facet pump that I've replaced in mine eventually. The part code is FED FP1810. If you can see it there, FED FP1810. Right. Let's quickly have a look at the old OEM pump. This is what we have. Two wires that are gone onto the bike is a green wire and a blue with black stripe, or it's a black with blue stripe. So those are the two wires that you use: green and black and blue. It's fairly simple. You unscrew the back. I think my screwdriver is a bit dodgy. Take the cover off, and you are left with this. So let's quickly see here. Camera is tilted upside down. Okay. Not sure if you can see this, but there's a little contactor point breaker in there. I'll get a battery now and I'll show you how it works. So what you want to do is you want to actually just take a piece of sandpaper, or you can use your needle files. I prefer the needle files, it's just more accurate for me. And between the contact breaker, you can slide it in. Push it in between the contact breaker and gently work it so that you flatten the 2 points. I'm going to be using a file rather. Very thin file. Get it in between there. File the points flat. Just make sure. I don't use any Q20 or anything on these. It will just get dusty eventually and muck up. So keep it dry. And obviously you need to reseal the back when you reassemble your pump. Now it has an in and an out. It's got the flow beneath the rubber. I'm getting this rubber off. But anyway, I think I'm just going to quickly stop the video and get a 12-volt battery so that you can see how it operates. Be back just now. Alright, I'm back. Let's quickly have a look. I've got a 12-volt point setup that I'll quickly show you how it operates. This is it. One side is suction, the other side obviously blows out. So just make sure your contact points are clean. And away you go. You have extended the life of your fuel pump for quite a bit more. I've never had anyone fail anywhere else except on this contact breaker point at the back. And remember, when connecting it to your bike again, solder the wires, use proper lugs. On your motorcycle, on the XRV750, it goes on to black with blue and green for earth. Also make sure that you use proper hose clamps when connecting your piping for safety reasons. It's not a high pressure pump, but still, you don't want any petrol leaks there, which can cause a bit of danger. If you like the video, please comment on it, get our liking ratings up. I'm going to be making a bit of changes on how I present the video in the sense of the intro and the outro. I want to see what works for you, what you like, what you dislike. But tell us, what else can we change? Would you like to see something different? Put it down in the comments. Really appreciate all the people watching, subscribing. We're growing, but there's always something that I want to do different, but I need to know what we need to do for you. So I'm guessing on my side how we're going to present it better for you guys. Right, for this week that's all. On the video you'll see our next week's video. We'll be doing the auxiliary tanks on the KTM 990. Where we find them to purchase, I was lucky enough to get it from a friend. I'm not sure, I haven't seen a place online where you can buy the auxiliary tanks. It's been in circulation for a few years, but I couldn't find the web address where they are for sale. But anyway, until next week, I want to do a bit of a video on the Nissan as well. But I first wanted to get this video out of the way. Cool. Enjoy your weekend. Bye bye everybody. Welcome back to the channel everybody. Right, bush fix time. We've been out to bread snack over the weekend, and the one thing we picked up on an XRV750 is it ran out of battery. First thing I had to look at is the MOSFET regulator rectifier. Wiring looks shoddy, but it actually still works. So the other common problem with the XRVs, which hasn't been picked up by anybody seemingly, is these plugs. So you'll see a lot of pictures on the internet talking about this, but here's the actual evidence. It is burnt. A hot connection causes the issue.
and we'll fix it. Part 2 of the video, I'll explain how we do it, but we're going to just bypass the connection and then join it up. It's a bush fix. Tools needed. We're going to have to use a set of pliers, a knife, and some 3M tape. Try and use the 3M, it's just better quality. Preferably we wanted to use lugs or chocolate box, but as I said, we're in the bush somewhere out here. There's nothing around, so we'll make do with what we have. Part 2 of the video following. Back to the channel, everybody. Well, so here's part 2 of the bush fix, regulator rectifier, stator wiring. I'm going to hand over and I'll be doing the work. So you've got 3 wires, they all come from the stator. Doesn't matter which wire you connect. I mean, you can use any of them. Both run about 120 volts or so, but the thing is, what we want to achieve is obviously the distance. So we don't have chocolate blocks or anything, so we need to make sure that we get the amount of wiring available that we can use. As I said, it's a bush fix. We have to make do with what we have. Make sure you don't cut into the wires. Rather cut lightly to avoid cutting into the wiring. Make sure you use a sharp knife. Obviously we don't have the burnt poles, that's gone. Right, so let's join them up. Preferably you want to do this with either a chocolate block, you want to solder them. But as I said, we need to get home and we're going to use what we have. Don't worry cutting into them. There will be another video how to test a stator, if that is fine or not. If it tests down to earth, that's obviously a problem, but I'll show you how we do that, but not remotely in the bush. As I said, you can mix them up, doesn't matter what color you, which wire you use on which one. So what you want to avoid is for them making contact. This will be a bush fix. When we get home, we'll obviously do a proper fix, but it's better getting home than being stranded next to the road. And this is actually a common problem on the XRVs. Mine ownership 6 years, picked it up, resolved it a few years ago, and it's really something you need to have a look at. If you're not sure and you're riding just generally a tar road, take the side cover off, have a look at it, and if it is a problem, fix it. It'll definitely give you a problem in the future. Alright, so just make sure when you did the fix that there's no obstruction in the wiring anywhere, it's not shorting anywhere, and that's it, you're good to go. This video took a few minutes to do, under 5 minutes. Done and dusted. And we'll do the video once we get home and we got it resolved. So charging restored. Let's recap quickly. Charging restored. Rectifier fine. Obviously this will need attention as well. I think the MOSFETs do a max of about 14.5 volts. With headlights on about 13.8, 14.2, but doesn't matter. As long as you have anything over 13.8, you're fine. So charging restored. These 3 wires go into these 3 wires in the AC side. Your stator is AC. This guy converts it to DC. DC charges obviously your battery. One thing I want to mention as well, if you have a look at this is a motorbad battery. Not available everywhere, but if you want a battery that has cranking power, get yourself one of the motorbad batteries. They are awesome. Ronald had his for like 7 years now, and he replaced it recently. 7 years of life. Awesome cranking power. That's what you want on the bikes. Yeah. Video 3 will follow on the wiring replacement, and then bush fix out. Thanks for watching the channel. Subscribe. Bye bye guys. Welcome back to the channel everybody. Frank's Way. Quickly want to talk about rectifier, regulator and troubleshooting. I'm not going to be doing a fix and build and whatnot. I'm more going to concentrate on the whiteboard on values and scenarios. So what we need to concentrate on is your starter relay, and then you have 3 AC wires coming from the stator going to the regulator rectifier, which then comes out, converts it into 12 volt for your battery. Okay, you'll have 3 wires, yellow wires, into the rectifier, out to the battery, and you have a starter relay. It's got 2 positive connections, red, coming from the battery and leading towards the starter, and it's got a 30 amp fuse, and it's got 4 poles. Right, so what you'll need to do a fix on these is a proper set of lugs, pliers, multimeter. I've got 2 gauge wiring. Don't use anything less than that. Nice and thick, it's not too thick. Soldering iron and solder, and a Stanley knife. Be sure not to cut yourself with it, they are very sharp. Okay, I think let's quickly run to the whiteboard and have a quick chat and discussion about what I want to tell you. Okay, so the regulator rectifier fix is one thing. I want to do a simulation when you're on the road. Whilst riding and your bike cuts out completely dead, first check your negative or positive terminal on the battery. If it's anything further than that and the poles are still tight, then you can remove your side cover on the right hand side, standing in front of the bike right hand side, and have a look at the wiring on the regulator rectifier. What usually happens is that your relay, your starter relay, the 4 wires on those poles will pick up a hot connection and they will start melting, and this is going to cause problems for you. So preventative maintenance, have a look at that plug. But I want to talk about some values quickly. So on your stator, you have, this bike comes standard with a 3-phase stator. It has dual headlights, so obviously a lot of power is consumed. It's a 3-phase stator, and each phase idling or running at about 3000 RPMs. You'll see anything from 12 volt to 30 volt AC. Very important, not DC, AC. We'll get back to that one. Your regulator rectifier is a 50 amp unit. So you do get 35 amp units. They look the same, but they're not. Higher rating.
Full charging on these bikes varies anything from 13.8 to 14.5 volt. If you want to build in a voltmeter on your dash panel in the front, if you connect it to your normal standard lights on and off, you might see a difference in voltage. Have a look at it. It'll show 11, 12 volt, but if you check it on the battery itself, it's actually 13.8, 14 volts. Just make sure on that. Don't get confused there. Hot connections, melting wires. The KTM 950 and 990s have the same issue. Not as common as the Africa Twins, but then again, the Africa Twins have been around since the late 80s, early 90s, up to 2003, last model. The stator wires, the three yellow ones that lead back to the rectifier, they do get fairly warm, so that's normal, it's natural. Your rectifier should heat up, that's also natural. I've seen people putting fans on the rectifiers. That really doesn't do it for me. I don't think you do any preventative measures to put a fan on there. It's just some electrical things that will anyway pick up dust and will stop working. So if you have good solid connections, good lugs, it's clean. I didn't pick up any issues. So they do get hot, but not that hot. Starter relay consists of 4 wires, 2 red on the front and a yellow and a green at the back, which engage your starter from your button on the top going down. Now if you have a look at the relay box, the OEM one is a black unit and the aftermarkets are green. Where your plug goes in, you'll see your red wiring coming at the back of them. If you buy an aftermarket starter relay and fit it similarly as it is in the bike currently, you'll see it won't work. You have to actually take the aftermarket one, turn it 180 around, and have your positive poles in the front and have your plug at the back. You'll see on the positive poles on the battery there's lettering X and Y, if I can remember correctly. Keep them next to each other, facing the same way, and have a look at the X and the Y's. You'll see the one is on this side and the other one is turned around. So just flip the relay. I had a subscriber who did a fix, and I'll show some footage on the video that we're doing of what his looked like. It's a common issue on them. They tend to run hot on the rectifiers and the wiring, but stator wires, stators don't really go faulty. It's likely that they go faulty. Rectifiers, regulators, yes. The 50 amp units are available through Startline in South Africa. You can buy the cheaper version, 50 amp, about 400-500 rand, and you can buy the MOSFET unit for 1,200 rand. But the MOSFET is more stable. I like it more, but it doesn't matter. You choose what you want to buy. Things to keep spare that when you go riding, if you can afford it, keep a spare rectifier. I would suggest the cheaper version on the 50 amp unit. I think the Yamaha R1 takes the same stator. Just make sure it's a 50 amp unit and it's got 3 wires coming in, and it doesn't matter if it's got 2 green coming out and 2 red coming out. You can have 1 green and 1 red as well. That'll give you enough charging, but just make sure it's a 50 amp unit. On the riding simulation, if you ride and your voltmeter starts going haywire to 20 volt, again it's a sign that your rectifier has packed up. I had pushed at some stage 20 volts through the voltmeter that I could physically see, and it didn't damage the CDI. So maybe I was just lucky, but it didn't damage it, so I'm all good with that. But yeah, on the regulator rectifier, take your side cover off, have a look at the parts. If they are dirty, if they are melted, I mean, Startline has these relay plugs, or just, these are old bikes, they're bulletproof, but they do have problems of their own, and it's really a handful of issues that can be dealt with, and it'll give you quite a bit more life out of the bike. And as I said, always make sure, on one of my previous videos, keep the oil levels up to date, top it up. They do use oil, especially if you're going 150, 160, use a pint or so. But bulletproof, robust, no hassles. Okay, and we'll do another video after this one, a different topic. Hope you enjoy the videos. Please like and subscribe. The channel is growing. I'm getting a lot of feedback from people, especially between the Africa Twin and the 990. More on the Africa Twin, which is great. I'll do more footage, and I will be doing a top-end rebuild on this at some stage in the next month or 2 or 3. We're still busy on that, on the Gucci and the KX250. We received the stickers, so I'll do a bit of detail on the next video on that one. But yes, thanks for supporting us. Please like and subscribe, and we'll chat in further videos. Open up for comments. Please ask away. Okay. Bye bye everybody. Till later. Welcome back at Frank's Way. Today we're going to talk about the Africa Twin ownership, old XRV750 Audio 7. I had this bike for like 6 years now, and in the 6 years we picked up problems, general wear and tear items. Rectifiers are a common issue, fuel pumps, we had a chain or two snap on us, but sprocket ratios were changed, and definitely progressive springs in the front, and a set of risers. Between the fuel pump and rectifier, I think I replaced 2 rectifiers so far, and fuel pump 1. There is a video that I want to do about the fuel pump though. What I need to mention is the OEM fuel pump, when it stops working, you can actually get it to work again. There are brushes at the back, and clean them up, and it'll work for an emergency case out of the bush back to home. But on the Facet pump, people generally specify on a Facet pump. Well, there's a reason for that. Your normal 12-volt fuel pump that they use in your Toyota Corollas or any of the old petrol carbureted vehicles. Now the fuel pump, which makes it different between the Facet pump and the normal fuel pump. The normal fuel pump will pump the petrol low pressure, but it will continuously pump it, and that floods your carbs. So the Facet fuel pump pumps, and it actually stops when it's full, so you don't get the flooding of the carbs. So I had the OEM one on, and it lasted me for about 4 years in ownership, and I changed over to the Facet pump
and that runs brilliant. I have no issues with it, and it doesn't flood the carbs. On the rectifiers, you have your two options. We buy them from Startline. Your 50 amp with your 3 yellow wires, 2 red and 2 green. And then you have your MOSFET. So the MOSFET is a more expensive unit. Both of them run up to average 14 volt. I think the MOSFET goes 14.5. We had a few batteries. I think before I forget it, the one very important thing that a lot of people forget is in your battery terminals. The africatwin tends to rattle one of the 2 terminals loose on the battery. And as soon as it is loose, there is no power on this bike and it's completely dead. So when you do a bit of TLC maintenance prior going on a long trip, make sure either take a bit of Loctite and put it on the battery terminals and fasten them up. Then you're sure about that. Also very important is check your chain adjustment. So with the 6 years that I had it, I started figuring out, don't do your chain adjustment with a bike standing on the stand. Do it with load on. Get on it and ask somebody to wiggle the chain for you at the bottom. If you have load on, use the OEM specifications on the swing arm, do the adjustments thereof. That will save you on your output shaft, and it will actually stop the wear on the splines. I haven't had the issues on the splines. A lot of people complain about them. I've, as I said, done 150,000 Ks on it so far. Does use oil. It's time for a rebuild at some stage and a rebore. Parts are available, and I think the complete rebuild kit worked out to about 14,000 rand. That's including an oil pump as well. Mains begins, full gasket set, and piston and rings oversize. But further than that, had no problems with it. You can use them for river crossings. The nice thing about it is we live in South Africa. If you want to do adventure riding, what you can do is obviously you can buy a 200,000 rand bike, but dropping it's 200,000 rand. Rather stick to something you can maintain, or have a friend maintain it, or start doing a bit DIYing yourself. I will show people how to change oil, do oil filters, do plugs, 1 or 2 special tools. One I made myself for the front cylinder on the plug. You just can't get it out. But if you want to do a bit of riding, buy a cheaper bike. These bikes are bulletproof. As long as you keep the oil level up, they just keep on running. The Wild Dog Forum had an africatwin for sale. I think yesterday Ronald told me about it. 35,000 rand. Obviously, when you go and buy a second-hand bike and you're not too familiar with the technical-minded side of things, take somebody with you, have them have a look at the bike, try and get the history of the motorcycle. Has it had services? There's a lot of small telltale signs. There's hundreds of forums discussing what to look out for, but get into biking as a second bike that you can really go and abuse a bit in the bush. You will fall. The one thing that we will be doing in the next 2 to 3 weeks is Breedsnack as it is currently. I know it's terrible. I heard bad stories about it. A friend of mine, I gave him a set of new foot pegs that I picked up from Startline. And yeah, Yaku, you'll know who I'm talking about. He actually fell over on Breedsnack and then lost one of the foot pegs. So he reverted back to the old ones. But more on that on another video. So in the comments below, tell us what you want to see. Which maintenance, rear wheel changes, front wheel changes, disc brake, brake pads, oil changes, normal stuff. Tools, obviously, take a bit of tools. You can't take your whole toolbox with, and then when you go camping, there's a certain amount of stuff that you do take with. Pack light. We regularly go on trips. We actually want to go and have a look at Kloof at some stage as well, do a sleepover and see, and do a bit of footage there. Take a lot of sent us a package today with quite a few goodies, all the fastening pieces for the GoPro. So we'll have a look at that, and we'll see if we actually lose a GoPro on the ride or not. But yeah, for the Africa Twin part of it, I'll do more detailed videos and not just a discussion. Hands-on, show you how to do brake pad changes. And I always feel I would like to transfer the knowledge so that you can do this type of work at home yourself. You know, the nice thing about it is whenever you are somewhere in the bush and you're very remote, chances are that nobody is around, and if you do have a breakdown, if you know the basics and you have the basic tools, most of the older bikes and some of the newer bikes will get you home. But you should start doing a bit of more DIYing. This is what the whole idea is behind the channel, is that I show you guys how to do things.